Greetings, friends. I'm Vitaly Portnikov. In the European Union, the influential Spanish newspaper El País reports that the decision for American President Donald Trump to meet with President Putin of the Russian Federation in Budapest is considered a genuine political nightmare. First, this meeting would take place on the territory of the European Union. However, the Europeans themselves will not be taking any part in making the fundamental decisions that are absolutely crucial for Europe's future. After all, the Russian dictator unleashed the largest war on the European continent since World War II, a war on the European continent rather than within the territory of the United States. Secondly, this summit would be taking place on the territory of Hungary, a country that consistently boycotts a majority of important political initiatives within the framework of both the European Union and NATO, with the aim of reducing the collective West's pressure on the Russian Federation. Among such decisions by Orban is the consistent boycotting of the possibility for the European Union to initiate accession negotiations with Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova regarding their membership in this bloc. Third, the situation appears to be a genuine instance of political lobbying on behalf of Viktor Orban by his long-standing supporter, Donald Trump, representing Orban's interests. Currently, Orban's party is significantly behind the nation's primary opposition, the TISA party, by a margin of 10 percentage points. There is a real possibility that during the upcoming parliamentary elections, which are scheduled to occur in Hungary in 2026, voters will cast their ballots for the opposition rather than for Orban's party. And Hungary's political nightmare, which has endured for many years, could eventually cease. This is precisely what Donald Trump is attempting to avert, as he consistently backs ultra-right populists and marginalized individuals throughout the entire European continent. This is no accident either, as the American president is deliberately working to dismantle the European project. He hopes that by engaging with individual European countries, it will be easier for him to communicate using his familiar language of pressure and blackmail. In this particular regard, the interests of Donald Trump completely align with those of President Putin. Perhaps that's precisely why Trump's favorite, Viktor Orban, is also the Russian president's political favorite. Fourth, a rather serious question arises regarding the manner in which President Putin will even manage to travel to Budapest. For European countries, if President Putin opts for a shorter route, for instance, traversing Polish territory specifically to steer clear of entering the airspace of the European Union, alternatively by passing through the territory of Romania, this will undoubtedly be a profound humiliation, because they won't be able to refuse the Russian president passage. This would not only offend President Putin, but would also offend Donald Trump more significantly. And to allow President Putin's plane to pass through the airspace of a European Union country would, once again, clearly demonstrate that all these International Criminal Court warrants and all these sanctions against the Russian president are truly not even worth the paper on which they are printed. And naturally, President Putin could also exploit this situation to once again mock Europeans. The only thing one can hope for in such a situation is the political paranoia of the Russian president, who simply would not dare to fly over the territory of European Union countries, as he would be uncertain of his safety under any circumstances. Well, now of course, Europeans can only hope that the meeting between President Putin and Donald Trump won't happen simply because the Russian president will not offer any significant concessions to his American counterpart. And so, Donald Trump will simply have nothing to talk about with President Putin in Budapest. The true extent of these hopes will be revealed when the United States Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, converses with the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Sergei Lavrov, and it becomes evident which decisions President Putin is prepared to take to pause the Russian-Ukrainian war. What's interesting is that all these thoughts about the real horror the European Union is facing after another one of Trump's arbitrary decisions are coming from anonymous sources. Officially, leaders of European nations openly welcome this initiative from Trump, especially if it genuinely serves to bring lasting peace to the long-suffering Ukrainian land. But some individuals are discussing the outcomes of recent foreign policy initiatives. Trump's actions spoken aloud and without much enthusiasm. Indeed, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who participated in a discussion with Volodymyr Zelensky and was among the European politicians present, stated immediately after the Ukrainian president concluded his challenging conversation with his American counterpart that the meeting between Zelensky and Trump did not conclude as anticipated by Zelensky. Therefore, European nations now need to provide even stronger support for Ukraine than they have offered up to this point. Because America, as one could understand from the German Chancellor's statement, does not live up to the expectations that might have arisen after Donald Trump transitioned to open public pressure on the Russian president. As we can see, practically all of this pressure and these threats vanished after the Russian president spoke with his American counterpart and in his usual comfortable manner of an experienced state security investigator, President Putin informed Donald Trump of the American president's significant achievements, about his peacemaking endeavors, and similar matters. Because we know that Trump is ready to exchange any logical political decisions for compliments and is literally dependent on the affection directed towards him, primarily by authoritarian world leaders whose style of leadership he overtly respects and is drawn to. It is not yet known when the meeting between Trump and Putin will take place, if it takes place at all. In Moscow, they are naming the date of October 30th or 31st. This implies the American president will meet the Russian president following the ASEAN summit in Malaysia. This summit is notably important, primarily because a private, informal meeting between Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China was planned to happen behind the scenes during its proceedings. However, with the new deterioration of economic relations between Beijing and Washington, it is unknown whether the president of the Chinese People's Republic will agree to meet his American counterpart. And if he does agree, will the meeting between Donald Trump and Xi Jinping be productive, and will it lead to any major decisions regarding the normalization of Sino-American economic relations? Without a doubt, in his interactions with Donald Trump, President Putin will focus on the actual occurrence or non-occurrence of this meeting and also on what agreements are reached by Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, who will indeed meet in Malaysia. Thank you, my friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe and follow my social media, Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee and Donatella to help develop these resources. Utilize YouTube's sponsorship feature. Victory and peace to you. Good luck.